guys. I'm not sure what episode this is because it'll depend on when it comes out, in what order. But an episode that I've really wanted to do now for a little while, because I think we got speaking probably before Christmas on some plans that we're going to help the gym out with.
Yeah.
But obviously life got in the way, Christmas and New Year's, but we finally got here. So what I'm going to get you to do to start, mate, for all our guys, is a bit of an introduction of yourself on, I suppose, your name, where you're from, and what you do.
No worries. Thanks, Sean, for the invitation. My name is Ben Clinch, and I'm the owner of the Free Range Butcher. We started 12 years ago this year, actually, now.
12 years. Congrats.
Yeah, and we sell grass-fed and organic meat through Sydney. Started out at farmers markets. Farmers markets still a huge part of our trade, but also doing online and moving more into that online space and the home delivery and trying to, meat's becoming, like everyone wants, retail and more convenient. So really trying to get that home delivery side sort of going as well. But really stick to grass fed. That's where we started. And we've got a farm up past Tamworth of Barabra. I grew up there. I went to boarding school down here in Sydney, but spent the large part of my time in the country. I'm a country boy at heart. You won't get that out of me. And I'm not a butcher either. Like I started coming from the consumer side into it, and we always used to do. I'm a tiler by trade. I done 1,000 things, did security, worked in pubs and retail and things a lot when I was younger.
Yep.
But always had a bent for meat and cooking, and always sold meat on the side. So I always used to, whenever I went home to the farm when I was living in Sydney or whatever, I'd go home. We had a partnership in a boning room in Barabra. It's only a small town. It's only 1,300 in Barabra itself. And we used to do, processed meat there, bring it back. I'd sell it to my mates, half a, side of beef or whatever it is, a half a lamb and some chops or whatever. And
you would have been a good friend to have.
Yeah. I tend to have a lot of friends that are, a lot of freebie mates, love jobs. So that's how it really sort of started, and it just got out of hand a bit. And then I remember one winter I was in the bathroom and a shower in the morning. And I remember my hands just from tiling. I was doing this, quite a big job, and I'm just going, man, my hands aren't going to work in like 10 years, let alone 20 or 30. Something's got to change. And so that's how we started. So the Free Range Butcher was born. We don't do any wholesale. We really try and do bodies and meat. During the summer we've got to top up with steaks because it's just people want more of that sort of stuff. But whenever we buy, we're always buying grass fed at a minimum. And my interest is really in connecting people with their food source and knowing where your food comes from. As a kid, we had veggies, we had milked our cows, we obviously slaughtered our own meat on farm, and we ate traditionally whole foods. And that wasn't by any other reason other than it was cheap and that's what we did,
Yeah.
Nowadays I look back and I go, man, that was an awesome childhood. Like we just ate, if you put lamb and 3 veg in front of me every day of the week.
Happy days.
Yeah. Happy's guy on the block.
And just before we move on, if anyone that does sound familiar with the Free Range Butcher, you're obviously in Mona Vale, and we've met because the gym was directly across from you. Now we've moved on to this street. We're directly behind you, so you can't get away from us. No. And mate, I'll take this chance to apologise on behalf of the entire gym if anyone's ever parked in your car spot.
No, mate, it doesn't. I don't ever get worried about that. I've got a truck, so we can always outmaneuver.
Can move it out.
Just park it in.
Have you been in Mona Vale for 12 years?
No, we've been here for, it must be 5 or 6 years. Okay. So we worked out of, like any small business, we started, and we still run very, very lean. I used to plug my truck in down at, I had an old BA Falcon ute at that stage, and I used to drive from here I started driving to Sydney, and then I moved to Sydney. My now wife lived down here. So she wasn't, the furthest I got her from the beach was Cromer, so I had no real sort of success there. So anyway, but we started driving. So anyway, we used to plug the truck in the other side of a mate's warehouse down at Brookvale, and we got 2 vans, and he told me to piss off because I was always in the way, and so it just sort of escalated from there. And now our boning room's up on the Central Coast, so we've got 5 full-time guys up there, work Monday to Friday, and then obviously our warehouse down here where we keep all our farmers market palaver and all the stuff to do with that, and
And have you still got the farm you said Tamworth?
Yeah, still got the farm. My mum and dad are still up there.
Okay.
I mean, they're into their 70s now, so there's some decisions being made at the moment about what we do there.
Yeah.
Look, farming's very difficult at the moment, and definitely very difficult when you're 74. Yeah.
And mate, I'm our guys here would know this, but I'm really ignorant when it comes to this. Been a city boy my whole life and never really been exposed to it. But maybe for some other guys and girls like me that aren't exposed to it, what's it like at the moment, the farming, with obviously the droughts, more recently the fires, and where's farming at the moment?
Like farming's struggling. And I mean, the thing is about this drought too, and I mean, we've been through droughts before. We bought our property the back end of 83. This property, and this is where most of my memories are, because obviously, my age. So we bought at the back end of a drought. We were lucky that it rained then. There's been a drought in the early 90s, a drought in the early noughties too.
Mm-hmm.
But this drought is really been biting. And if you talk to my old man about it, he'll say that we've been in drought or some form of drought for over 15 years.
Wow.
We haven't strung seasons together like we had when we first bought the place. So the thing now about this drought is it's so widespread. So generally, some areas are affected worse than others. And the southern parts of Australia, or the southern parts of New South Wales, from probably Dubbo south, are only really starting to bite now. But the northern half where we are, the New England and the northwest, there's more grass on this table here than there is on our place at the moment.
Is it that bad?
Yeah, it's really brutal.
And what are the flow-on effects of that, like with the animals and obviously feed and stuff like that? Give us an idea of sort of how bad it is on a isolated incident.
Well, look, I mean, I can't talk for everyone, but I can obviously talk for our farm. We haven't pulled stock from our farm for probably 3 years now. Like for our business, obviously, when we started, everything came off our farm. That's what we did. Well, not everything, but our beef, our lamb, and our pork came off our farm.
Yeah.
We got rid of our most of our, or all of our pigs, other than sort of 2 sows that Dad's got a bit of an attachment to. Beginning of last summer.
Okay.
Just because we didn't have the water to supply for their wallows and things like that, we knew that we just wouldn't be able to support them a long time through the drought. And because what we do is a grass-fed and a free-range product, so it's outside all the time. There's no sheds. There's no manipulating of behaviours or caging stuff up. So to have animals outside all the time, you need those basic resources. And if we were in a shed, we probably could have done things a bit different. Yeah. But there was never a conversation about putting stuff in a shed. I mean, we don't have a bloody shed anyway to put them in, so we certainly weren't going to fucking build one there. So, that sort of thing has a pretty massive effect. I mean, at the present time, normally our farm, and to give you a bit of a background on that, we're about 1,200 metres above sea level, so we're quite high. We're on traditionally a 40-inch rainfall country, okay, which is 1,000 mils, so which is a lot of rain for anywhere. Yeah. Some of the New England country gets a bit more rain than that, but really the elevation, we've got a national park behind us, we've got a nice high mountain, and traditionally, and when I say traditionally, this hasn't been happening more recently, is the rain will come, will build up there, we get some build up over the mountain and then sort of fall on out, for where we are. So we're right on a watershed. It's a beautiful place. You look down, it's just all open country. You're looking down on pretty much everything. The mountain behind us, when it's a clear day, you can see, and I think it's 1/8 of New South Wales from the top of the mountain. So it's quite high, beautiful sort of Man from Snow River style sort of country.
Wow.
And where we are opens up a bit. It's been cleared. It was a soldier settlement block, so it was part of a much larger farm. And then after the Second World War, then the country got opened up, and the soldiers came back, and they got all the big places then got broken up, and soldiers got given that land.
Right.
And that's where it's at. And there's old, you can see the old coach roads on our place. There was an old shed down the bottom from where the old Cobb & Co guys used to come through and pull up and have their, stay the night. And so there's there's bits of history there. You can see where it all is, and it's. I mean, years and years ago, it was remote. Like it was, we're 30 k's out of town. We're 120 k's out of Tamworth.
How many people in town?
In the town itself, I think there's about 500 or 600.
Okay.
Maybe there's more. Maybe there's 800 or 900. There's about 1,300 in the district.
Right.
It was a really heavily. It was wheat country and fine wool merino country. So because of our height and our elevation, we're really in breeding sort of country. Farming or grazing, animal production can be split into two different things. And this is when I'm talking about sheep and cattle. You can either be breeders or you can be finishers.
Okay.
So if you think of animals on a very basic level, like a human, you put a calf or a lamb on the ground. You want to grow it on. You want to put bone on, and as a teenager's putting bone on, and then you put weight on that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that's a bit rough to think about below, but that's literally what
That's
it is.
the reality of it.
Yeah. So we're really in breeding country, and then we finish stock in good years. So if we've got the rain and we've got the feed, then we'll hold our stock, because primarily what we are, and what I've come to realise now, and what farmers need to realise, is that we're grass growers. Meat is a byproduct of what we do as farmers. And you've got to utilise that grass. Now, to grow the grass, you've got to look after your soil. Your soil's like your gut. If you don't look after your gut, then your biome gets buggered up, and then you start getting sick. And, there's plenty of evidence out there now to tell us that our gut and what we're eating and the food that we're consuming is having a direct result on our health and, cancer levels and everything else. And
so the analogy there is it's not only that the grass isn't growing, but the soil that you were growing the grass in is now nowhere near as healthy as what it was. So the soil, it's not only just the rain that you need to grow the grass, but also now the quality of the soil is getting less and less as well.
Yeah, well, no one's looking after this soil. Because, if you think about the country years and years ago, you need animals on grazing country to actually make it better. And there's all this, the whole, Netflix movies and all this sort of stuff now. There's a lot of information out there. But the reality of it is that grazing country needs to be grazed to perform better.
Okay. So if it's left alone, it doesn't flourish. It has the opposite effect.
If you think about it like your lawn at home, right? For those of you guys got a lawn, like if you let your lawn grow really long, if you don't mow it, it gets really long and strangly and in the you can see the ground. The soil opens up because the plant wants to go high. But if it's grazed, if you bite it off or you mow it, then it gets thicker.
Okay.
And it gets greener and there's more of it and it bunches up. And so then when the rain comes, the rain then, that grass then holds the rain. Instead of it running off or washing the soil away or over the hard soil or whatever happens, then that rain is then held, it goes into the soil, the soil gets a much deeper and a better moisture profile and then can hold on for longer. But nowadays, agriculture, we're just punishing the soil. Like you go out to a lot of the farming places, everyone's ploughing and they're ripping the soil up and it's just destroying the biome. It's like you putting your hand in your gut and just ripping everything around and moving it, it's not good for it.
Right.
And the biomes then in the soil then don't assist the soil as much, so then you've got to put chemicals on it to get the required nutrients that you need because the nutrients is not in the soil. And the only way that you can get nutrients in the soil is by adding it in. So the plant naturally, in certain plants, and when you've got diverse plants within a certain space, all those plants bring different attributes and different chemicals and different minerals, I should say, to the soil. And that biodiversity is what grows and what benefits, and then there's organic matter that then turns back into it, and it just, it's a whole living ecosystem within itself.
So would you say over time, because the quality of the soil is going down, like the nutrient profile of the plants and the grass and the veggies and stuff that have been growing even organically over the last, say, 50 to 100 years, is the quality naturally going down?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you look at hydroponically grown lettuce. Like, sometimes where you buy, and I don't know whether it's a supermarket or whatever, you buy like a tomato or a carrot, and I reckon carrots are probably one of the stronger ones. You can get carrots and it's got no flavour, and then sometimes you let it carrots, it's got a massive amount of flavour in it. Well, why is that one? That's how the carrot should be. And it's got a massive amount of flavour in it because then it's got the right nutrients at the right time, and it grew properly. So it didn't only just grow, like it's not just a big carrot, but it's a big carrot that's nutrient dense. And that flavour is what you want, because that flavour is where all the nutrients is.
So how much, this is probably a broad question, but how much harder is it to be a grass-fed producer opposed to your mass production kind of stuff? Like, so at the moment, obviously the rain is bad, the soil's bad, it's harder to grow sort of food for the animals. Like you're saying, your old man, he's got rid of a lot of his now. So versus mass production, how much harder is it, or how much easier is it for the guys doing the mass production stuff, which I assume is where our meat comes from when we're buying meats from Woolies and Coles and things along those lines?
Yeah, so I mean, if we're talking mass production, we're talking feedlots and feedlot meat. And most of your meat now, especially probably in the last, 18 months, has been feedlot. And I used to think feedlots were a necessary evil in a way. And my mentality around that was we need to feed the population meat. We've got to get out. There's a certain standard that people expect, certain quality they want. Well, when you feedlot something, you can guarantee that out the other end. When you grass feed something, there's so many variables because you're not controlling the situation at all. You're not manipulating everything. You're just letting everything happen naturally, and that takes longer. So then it can be more expensive. You're not necessarily putting the feed into it, so you don't have the input cost. But you need more land, you need more labour, and you need more of everything in a longer time to be able to do it. So there's a higher cost in that grass-fed product compared to a grain-fed product. And that's probably general speaking. I mean, if you're talking about Wagyu or something that's sitting in a feedlot or sitting in a pen for 700 days or something like that, well, there's a significant cost.
In that. Hence why Wagyu beef is so expensive.
Yeah. Well, that's another kettle of fish. That job.
So with that, then, if we're looking at sort of general population buying meat, and they go, I'm going to go to Woolies or Coles, which is typically where most people buy their meat, I imagine. And they say, I'm going to get a kilo of chicken for $9.99 for a kilo of chicken. But then we say, come and speak to you and we want a kilo of chicken, and I don't know what it costs, but I'm going to assume it's going to be more than Woolies and Coles can.
It's more than double that, yeah.
More than double that.
Early 20s now, yeah.
And I think the big misconception on the guys and girls is that like the volume is the most important thing when it comes to cost. Like if you can get a kilo for $9.99, that's going to be better than getting a kilo for the early 20s. So maybe the first thing we talk about is like the economics of it. So when we're purchasing from a free range butcher like yourself versus Woolies or Coles, like where does the money go? So that $9.99 that I'm going to Coles and Woolies, what does that support versus the early 20s dollars that I'm going to give you for that kilo of chicken? Where does that money go?
I think Coles and Woolies got a lot of answer for, just as a general statement before that, because they give a real impression that meat and produce should be as cheap as what they're selling it for. But Woolies and Coles, they don't have to make money off their meat or their veg. That's what gets you in, because that's a staple. They just double pump you when you go buy your twisties and your chocolate and all the shit.
Hand sanitizer and tissues
and all that sort of stuff on the inside. And they always talk about shopping the outside of supermarkets, don't go on the inside. So, I mean, supermarkets run their meat cabinets under 5%. Like there's nothing. Like you couldn't, as a standalone business, it's broke.
I've never thought about that. So if we were to take the butcher out of any Woolies or Coles and do that as a standalone business, then they're gone, not making any money. But what they do is they offer that because it's a one-stop shop. Yeah, and you can get absolutely everything.
That's right. I mean, it's like your milk at $2 a litre. Like that is just rooting the farmer, because the farmer's at the bum end of that. And it's the same with the chicken. Like if you buy chicken for $9, I can't buy chicken for $9. I can't buy chicken for $9. So
how do they do it?
Well,
so I imagine someone has to.
They're volume buying.
Pay.
They're volume buying, so they're buying a hell of a lot. And someone always pays. You're exactly right. So if it's not Woolies aren't paying. That chicken that they're getting it from is from a mass-produced. Because Coles and Woolies aren't willing to pay the money, so they'll say, I want chicken for $8 a kilo or $9 a kilo. We'll put it on and put $1 on it. And so then you've got a farmer or a processing house somewhere who goes, fuck, I've got to get chicken out for $9 a kilo. How am I going to do that? Well, I've got to get, instead of 10,000 chickens in this shed, I've got to get 15,000 chickens in this shed, and I need another 4 sheds, because I've got to get my volume up to make it worth my while to be able to do it, because I'm making bugger all per kilo out of it. And we're going to have to pump these chickens with whatever we can to make them grow as quick as we can, because every day that they eat feed is costing money. So we need them out of here in 21 days, 28 days. So, I mean, you think of a chick, a day-old chick, then grows to I think it must be a 2 kilo bird. Like they get that, when you see that thumping big, like
yeah, they're jacked.
Huge, right? And you go, whoa, that chicken's somewhere between 21 and 28 days. So it's got that big.
21 and 28 days old. You're kidding. From a chick.
Yep. They smash them up.
So what
For
you're
the
saying
big ones,
here,
they might be a little bit older. I should probably say that. But
Yeah.
they're turning out stuff very, very quickly. Like they grow phenomenally.
so when we go in and we buy a kilo of chicken breast for $9.99 a kilo, let's say $10 a kilo,
Yep.
and then the only way they're doing that is by so the farmer gets worked
Yep.
significantly harder, and obviously he has to make very small margins on it. So what he does is he lowers the quality of living for the animal, the food, and not by him being a bad person, but like out of necessity. Like he has to meet those
Well,
criteria
an
to compete in Woolies and Coles.
Absolutely, and agriculture is moving that way. So whatever you do, as a farmer, we're price receivers. So we can only receive what price is offered to us. But
Right.
and we go to market, so there's auction systems and things like that. I mean, you're talking about a chicken, well, that'd be under contract, so everyone will know where they are.
Yeah.
So they know, well, we can only spend this. It's got to spend this amount of time here, and then it's got to go. So the animal suffers because, I mean, the modification to genetics to chickens in the last sort of 50 years has been phenomenal. Like in our grandmother's time, a chicken was a roast that you had on a special occasion. Like it wasn't something you ate 2 or 3 times a day.
It's an expensive meat.
It was an expensive meat, right?
Yeah.
And the pigs have gone exactly the same way. So then they go, okay, well, we can produce, instead of that being a chicken that would have cost me, I don't know what they cost. Let's say it was a $30 chicken. I got chickens, like we got organic chickens we sell for $35.
Yeah.
And I go to Coles, chicken the same weight is $10, $12. Now I know that the farmer that I get it from, it cost him more than that $12 to produce that chicken. So what the fuck's going on over there?
Yeah,
You get that for $12. And that in my head, I'm going, well, I don't want that.
And I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, but this goes across not just chickens, but every animal. Like
Yeah,
you can draw this same line for lamb and for
Food processing.
Yeah, okay.
Everything. Bread, whatever you want. Milk.
This is just how it works.
Well, because as consumers, everyone wants stuff cheaper all the time. But because if you hold up a 2 litre of $2 milk and you hold up a $6 bottle of milk that you buy from, the farmer or the producer down at the markets, and they're $6 for 2 litres down there, well, where's the cost different? Like people, you look at the milk and you go, it's the same milk. It's white.
It's white.
It's 2 litres of it. And so 99% of the population goes, I'll pay $2 and not $6.
So let's talk about where that $6 would go then, or the $35 chicken or the $20 per kilo chicken. Like if we're going to come to a free range butcher and spend double the amount of money, like where does that money go? Who are we supporting in that case?
Traditionally, when you buy a $35 chicken, it's all small businesses that have held that chicken right the way through. So whether it's the farmer or us as the processor, or there's small businesses. So small businesses cost more than what a Coles does. I mean, Coles never takes that chicken out of the bag. So the handling cost, the processing cost, more for butchers. We don't have machines. We've got butchers, knives,
people,
families that get paid.
Yeah.
And they're good butchers, so we pay them more. The farmer gets more money because but he's still not getting a lot for his efforts though. And the farmer always seems to sort of luck out. But even in that $30 chicken, I know the guy that's there, he's struggling. Like he's paying $1,200 a tonne for grain, and then he makes his own feed on farm. Like makes it fresh one day and then feeds it to the chicken the next day. So the amount of work that goes in that. He's a 55-year-old bloke. He's on a grain mill in the afternoon and he feeds out in the morning. And that's where the money goes. The money goes in the $1,200 a tonne in for the feed. And I say to him, I said, man, we're really struggling with a $35 chicken at the moment. Like it's tough going. And I said, I'm not asking you to, this is not a conversation about discounting price, but what can we do to try and, can we get more volume going?
Yeah.
Can we do something to try and make it more attractive? How do we do this? Can we reduce our slaughter weight slightly to make it a bit more, is that more beneficial for you? But see, for him, chickens gain the maximum weight in those last 5 days.
Yep.
And his chickens are much slower growing, so his chickens go out to 4 weeks or something.
So not only he's feeding it better quality food, he's making the food it's funny the terminology that we use, feed. Like he's making the feed.
Yeah.
Obviously he has it longer because he's not pumping it full of these sort of, I assume they're the equivalent to like a steroid or something to get them growing quicker. Or
it's interesting. Just touching on that is that because everyone says now there's no hormones.
Yeah.
So they go, there's no hormones in that.
Hormone-free.
Hormone-free chicken.
Yeah.
Because they were pumping them full of hormones now. But what they do is they've blocked I'm not 100% of this. I think it's a beta blocker in the brain that stops. It's the receptor that stops hormone production. So what they actually do now is stop that receptor, so the brain overproduces its own hormones.
Yeah.
Back to a super high level of hormones.
Oh my God.
So
It's the same. Yeah.
No added hormones.
Just manipulated hormones.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you about that part.
So then, so he's got the chicken longer. He's feeding it much better feed, and obviously, so the cost of that goes up and up and up. Because I think the big misconception with free range butchers, and I've had this for sure, is like, right, I'm going to get kilo of chicken for $10 versus kilo of chicken for $22. The only difference really here where that money goes, that extra $12 per kilo, is probably in the free range butcher's pocket because they're probably buying it from the same farm, feeding it the same stuff. Because if I can use an analogy of like apparel, if you go buy a Gucci shirt, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Or even we look at our iPhones or whatever, they're Chinese sweatshops, and that's the exact same place that Lowe's are buying their stuff.
Yep.
It's just that the branding's really different. But when it comes down to food, it's significantly different. You're not buying it from these same guys that are got the 15,000 chickens in one shed and pumping them full of this, manipulating their hormones, and then just putting a higher price tag on it because you're a free range butcher. Like, I think that's a big misconception with what people have, is that you're buying the same meat, you're just putting a bigger markup on it because you're a sort of a free range butcher.
Yeah, and look at that, and that happens. Like it happens. And I'm no butcher, so I was first few years were a massive steep learning curve for me.
Yeah.
And look, you're exactly right, and that happens all over the place. And when we first came to Sydney, when we stopped processing up in Barraba, we started processing down here. I worked out of the back of butcher shop, so I used to just pay a per kilo rate to the local guys for them to cut our meat up. The shit that I saw in there, once I started actually working inside the meat industry down here in Sydney, was just unreal. Like people buying old meat, washing it in chlorine, chicken especially, massively done heaps, washed in chlorine, and then put it in the window. And Sally comes in with the two kids, just wants some chicken for tonight's dinner.
My God,
there she goes.
And like I shouldn't say, oh my God, because like I wouldn't know. You know, like
I've got no idea. Consumers have got no idea.
Yeah.
And I mean, the food industry, it goes on all over the place. I mean, it happens at all levels, whether it's the abattoirs. I mean, we've lost bodies of beef in abattoirs, and I've been sent shit meat to me, and I go, that's not my body.
Right.
I go, yeah, it is. I go, it's not.
No, it's not.
How can I have you've sent me because everything works out. 56% your carcass weight is from your yield, from a live weight. So I go, that's not my weights don't match up. And they go, it is. And I go, it's black. So meat, if it's stressed right at that point of slaughter, lactic acid is sent through the body as a response to the stress, and it can send the meat really dark colour, like purple.
Right.
Meat goes really tough. And early on in the piece, they know you're early, you know you're green skin, and they know you
try to get away with it.
Yeah, jam it in. I go, it's not mine. But you never get your body back.
Yeah.
You know. So I mean that sort of stuff happens regularly, and because you're dealing with fresh produce, I mean there is no greater stress in business than if I went back into business, I'd have a really good think about going back into perishable food again.
If you knew what you knew now, you might be making some different choices.
I don't know. I don't know whether I would, but that was something that I never thought about.
Well, mate, you sound so passionate about it. I reckon you'd go down the exact same.
Yeah. Well, when I first started, I told my dad, and my dad goes, "You want to do what?" I said, "Yeah, I reckon we sell meat. And I reckon these farmers markets, I reckon they're the go. There's people there. The butchers are, I'm not sure they're doing it quite right. I reckon we could do it better." And he goes, "Mate, you got rocks in your head."
He knew.
Yeah. And he goes, "Mate, it's just a deadly industry. It's really hard." And and then I started talking to a few other blokes who were involved in it, and they all said the same thing. But thankfully, I was stupid enough not to listen.
So let's talk about then, because what just came to my head then when you said the chicken gets washed in chlorine and then, did you say chlorine?
Yeah.
I did say chlorine, then put back out there. Is like, so we know that if we're buying from free range butchers, then money is going to help small businesses and people.
That's where it goes.
But I imagine if everything had glass walls, it's where we would want our money to go. Do you mean to these guys, supporting these guys that are doing the right thing, opposed to the big conglomerates that have just taken over the industry, not making any profit on it, but just getting you in those four walls so they can make some profit. But what's said about the quality of meat or the nutrient profile of the meat that we're eating then? So give me an idea if that $9, $10 per kilo chicken versus the $20 per kilo. I keep messing this up, but what's the nutrient profile of the both? Like, are they comparable? Is that going to be half as good? Is that going to be twice as good? Like, what's the comparison in nutrients that we're going to get out of that food?
There's a reason that it's cheap, and I think that, look, I don't have any hard facts on whether $9 chicken is as good as $20 chicken. I know that the $20 chicken is as fresh as you can get. I know it's got maximum nutritional profile in it.
So when you say fresh, like, because that's thrown around really loosely, because it's on almost every package is like fresh fish, fresh.
Yep.
Give me an idea of, with your knowledge of something that I'm buying off the shelf at Woolies or Coles, like how long has that been? Like how fresh is that? And what's the process? What's it been through or potentially been through?
So your white meat doesn't have a long shelf life at any stage. So generally your chicken is going to be fresher, but you can freeze meat and then bring it back out, thaw it back out, and then sell it. Like you're not supposed to, but I know it absolutely definitely happens.
Okay.
I've been into freezers where I've just seen pallet racking just full of frozen chicken at chicken abattoirs,
and then they just defrost it, and then
it just goes into a cold room. They break open the boxes and then just let it all defrost overnight, or for a couple of days, depending on the amount of it. Bag it up and sell it. That's fresh. So I mean, chicken itself's probably only got a whole chicken. Look, we put 5 days shelf life on a whole chicken from when we get it. So it's processed overnight. So it comes off farm one day. We get it the next morning. It's processed overnight. We get it the next morning. Goes in a bag. You can have that for dinner that night. I mean,
I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Technically. So that's
so you're talking Monday. The chicken's moving around.
Yep.
And then by the time it's processed, you're talking like 24 or 48 hours between like the potential that we buy that from you.
All our meat is processed within 10 days of sale. And so we only sell 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So you've only got that short window to get it processed and ready.
So I've only got 4 days. So our beef is processed on a Friday. That's sold the following weekend. Our pork is processed on a Monday morning. That's sold that weekend. And our lamb is processed on a Friday too. And then we sell that the following weekend.
So give me the comparison then from what your knowledge of if I was to buy that from Woolies or Coles. Are we talking an extra 4 or 5 days, or what is it?
Red meat, especially beef, if it's got no bone in it, so boneless red meat will hold the longest, and especially if it's held as a primal, so as a muscle, so your rump or the strip loin or something like that. Look, you can, and more recently we've been had a lot of wholesalers ringing us. At this time of year, we buy carton meat out of South Australia. There's a family called Thomas Foods, quite a big business, but they're a family-owned business, Australian business, 100% Australian-owned. And we get grass-fed meat out of them. At the moment, we can get that within a week or two. Mm-hmm. I've been offered stuff I got offered some stuff on Monday that was slaughtered in early October from another company.
In early October?
Early October, yeah.
November. So you're talking 2.5 months?
Yeah, and it was cheap. Like it was nearly half the price that I pay these guys for the product that from our current supplier, Thomas. And I said, man, it's really cheap. I said, what's your pack date? And he goes, early October. Awesome.
So you're talking...
So that would
animals walking around sort of early October, and they're trying to sell it to you now.
Yep.
So you're talking 2.5 months, 10 weeks or something like that.
And that's pretty consistent. Like I would say that most of that meat would be November date. So I mean, it'll be 6 or 8 weeks easy before it gets to a butcher shop. Coles and Woolies might be, depending on how I don't know how their systems work.
Yeah.
Coles and Woolies do buy good cattle. Like I've been at yards where they've bought like just pen after pen after pen and paid big money for them. But the thing that I can't understand about Coles and Woolies is I've seen them buy really good cattle. I've never seen that quality of meat, or rarely that quality of meat, on the shelves.
And look, I imagine...
And I think that's the handling in between. Like there's just
and especially if we're talking a couple months of handling time.
Yep.
Like you only can assume that the nutrient profile and the quality of that meat is only ever going down. Like it's not going up.
Yeah, 100% spot on there. Yeah, that's peaked early on, you know. And then there's some sort of talk about we dry age a lot of our beef cuts, like our better stuff, and there's a lot of talk about wet aging as well when they talk about meat in plastic bags, and then it ages and it gets softer as it ages. So there is some benefits in having product that long, but I mean, if you look at a bit of meat that's been sitting in a bag, even our product has been sitting in there for 2 to 3. Like I take stuff home, leave it in the back of the fridge, and I pull it out, and I've got some meat there from Christmas now. And this stuff in my fridge as well, it's past our best before date.
Yeah.
10 days ago now.
Yeah.
I'm still eating it because I know it's fresh and it's fine because it's been handled well right the way through the process.
Yeah,
yeah. But it doesn't look good. Like it's got a lot of blood in it, and everything. The meat itself is, and I mean you're losing a lot of nutrients in that. I mean, it sounds a bit gross, but you're losing a lot of nutrients in that blood because that's where
that's where it's held.
That's where it's held. So,
mate, if you wait another 9 weeks, you can sell it to Coles.
Yeah, that's it.
Leave it in the fridge another 9 weeks and put it on to Coles.
There's a strategy. So I mean that you're never getting that fresh, as good as product you can. And the problem with meat is that you look at a bit of meat, you can't tell. Like a bit of rump, 2 bits of rump looking together, 2 litres of milk looking together, same.
And I think that's where it comes down to with the consumer having trust. It's really hard to have trust in anyone when you don't know what you're buying. Like I'm so ignorant with this stuff. And like I would say I'm fairly knowledgeable in nutrition. But when it comes to where my food's being sort of come from and the way it's been handled and how long, like the idea of me buying something that's slaughtered in early October, I know that makes no sense to me. You know what I mean? That something could sit there for 3 months and then me buy it. But I wouldn't know that when I've been buying my meat. Like it's just not something I think about. What about seafood? What's the
seafood's got? I mean, prawns are frozen. Heaps of fish is frozen. Anything with that really short shelf life. I mean, prawns are frozen on the bone. Like they cook and freeze them. And the freezing techniques now are so good. Like the freezers they freeze so quickly. And like anything, you've got to get the heat out of something. Like once you slaughter an animal, you've got to get the heat out of it as quick as you can.
Yeah.
And the quicker you can do that, and then the more consistent you can keep the temperature under 5 degrees. Like all our trucks, our processing room runs at 5 degrees. So that we're working in, and I shouldn't say we, but the boys are working in 5 degrees day in, day out, 4 a.m. in the morning to 2. Our trucks run at -6. And I mean, everything's iced at farmers markets. Farmers markets are difficult, especially this time of year.
And when it's 40 degrees,
like our ice machine's just on double time. And that, if you can keep meat at 1 degree and consistently at 1 degree, it will keep much longer than if you store it at 4 degrees at a steady heat. And then if you get any temperature fluctuations in it, that reduces your shelf life dramatically.
So let's talk about... just quickly, we've probably been talking for an hour already. I probably could keep you here for another hour. Let's talk about something that everyone can relate to, is like salmon, for example. Like, so fresh fillets of salmon, and I think a real big trend at the moment is like wild caught salmon. Like I've seen that heaps here. So what's the difference between the process that a salmon that I'm going to get at one of the bigger conglomerates that I'm talking about versus like a free range or wild caught salmon? So like the way they're fed and the way they're...
The first thing you notice with when you buy wild caught salmon is a colour difference between the two.
Yeah.
And wild caught is obviously wild, but farm salmon is the way food's going. It's just a factory farm fish. So from what I've read, there's 5 kilos of fish and grains that have gone in to produce every kilo of farmed salmon. And there's dye that goes in to make it all pretty. Now, our farm salmon is quite nice. I like it. I try not to eat it because it's not good. And the thing that makes it good tasting is the feed that they're putting into it. So it's just gone exactly the same way as the chicken has, and the pork has, and the beef has, and the lamb has. And
So say that again. So 5 kilos worth of fish. Well, you said fish. So
bycatch of trawlers and everything like that just goes in, big mulching machine.
Mash it up.
Put grains in it to get protein level up. Because they're wanting to get protein, so you get muscle growth, exactly the same as what we do.
Yeah.
Get it to a certain protein level, and then make it a pellet. Then they drop it in the water, so the fish is swimming.
And 5 kilos of that pellet will create 1 kilo of...
Yeah, supposedly, yeah.
Makes no sense.
No, neither does cattle in a feedlot. Like if you think of feeding cattle, that's exactly the same. It's exactly the same thought pattern. It's the same, just a different animal.
And then I imagine the shelf life of salmon is probably a lot less. Like if we're talking about the early October slaughter and pack now, and like I imagine the salmon's a little bit shorter than that.
Yeah, and I mean that's why a lot of your wild caught salmon is always frozen. And if you think it's not, it has been. Absolutely, 100%.
100% it's been frozen at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because you think you can't. You think of the logistics of producing something like that. That you can't catch a salmon in the waters where salmon's traditionally caught and get it to your shop in 5 days.
Yeah.
It's not a high volume item, so it's not like there's pallets of it coming
in day in, day out.
You know what I mean? Which is when they can do it fresh. And I think a lot of that farm salmon is fresh because it's just like there's truckloads of it coming up the coast.
Right.
But no one's going to risk it going off because the shopkeeper wants it for 3 or 4 days, you know, to have a chance of selling it, doesn't it? So then what's it? It's frozen.
It's unbelievable. So then what's the living quality like of the salmon, the mass-produced salmon? Like what?
I don't. It's exactly like a chicken in, you know, with 10 per square metre. She's just jammed up and they're swimming around eating their shit and eating the pellets.
Just shitting in the same water that they're eating, and then they're just throwing the pellets in, and
same thing with feedlot cattle. All of that. Yep, happens all the time. And I mean, look, they've got a. And the thing is, it's like kids that go into a kindergarten. Like you put all those kids in a kindy, and someone gets sick, and you pull kids from everywhere. One gets sick, well, all of them get sick, and then they bring it home. Well, to prevent that in feedlots, because you think of a feedlot, excuse me, they've got cattle coming in from a lot of different places, and they do a very good job. Don't want to talk it down. Like their animal husbandry is, you know, is very good. Like, but it's good because it needs to be really good because they want to minimise infection. They want to minimise the risk of, you know, bacteria or anything happening or the animals getting sick. So I mean, the first thing that happens to them, you know, bang, get some antibiotics into you. That'll make you feel better.
Yeah.
And it's used as a preventative. And it's the same, you know, I would imagine the fish is the same way because they don't, I mean, you got a fish tank at home, it gets dirty and then it starts getting stinky and gets a bit rank and whatever. I mean, my kids want a dog, right? Well, they can't look after their fish, so they're not getting a dog, you know, so, you know, those sort of principles. So there's medication going in the feed to keep them, to prevent them, because every day that once you get a mass-produced factory article, no matter what it is, fish, cows, whatever, every day that it's fed longer than what it needs to be is costing you money. There's not enough margin in the product at that sort of level and the sort of scale they're doing it to be able to afford that. So they're doing everything they can to not, you know, to bring that price down, to keep it really within the tight margins they needed to keep in, so then they can sell the cheap stuff out, and so it's cheap, so then there's volume, and that's how they make their money.
And I think the most important thing really here to reiterate is, you said this to me before we started recording, but it's like, you are what your food eats.
Yeah, and Michael Pollan made that famous. And it's something around there, like you are what your food eats. So if you, and this is where the whole thing about the soil, and I'll go back to that sort of start with, like if you've got a really rich soil life and a really great ecology in your soil, and you're looking you're soil, so you're farming organically, you don't necessarily have to be organically certified, but if you're a regenerative farmer, so you're regenerating the land and regenerating your soil, if your organic matter is increasing, then the more organic matter you've got in your soil holds more water, so then that looks after your soil further. You can grow better grass. If that grass has got really good nutrient profile, and it's like the really tasty carrot, and you've got diverse grasses instead of monocultures, you've got polycultures. So instead of like spraying out big tracts of land and then putting oats in, and I mean, look, we've done that on our farm, and we do that especially during this drought. But that's not good long term for your soil, and that's 2% of our farm. It's the other 98% is organically run, you know.
Right.
And that's not good for your soil because you're killing all that. So then if your animals eat that grass, animals know they pick and choose stuff. They'll, you know, different grass. If they're feeling sick, they'll do this. If there's bones in their cattle, if they're low on calcium, they'll go lick the bones.
Really?
You know, so I mean, they self-medicate, you know, on different plants, different herbs, and different things they do. So if your meat then is getting that nutrient-dense grass, then it can only be nutrient-dense meat. You know, and it looks exactly the same as the factory farm stuff. Like you cut a bit of steak, they look exactly the same.
But the nutrient profile is significantly different from what that animal's had the opportunity to eat. That's or right. Has been force-fed or
That's
pumped
right.
through antibiotics if they're sick, or if someone in the
whatever it's had has got a direct result of the nutrient profile of that bit of meat. Now, it might still look good. And the thing about meats too, like anything that our bodies can't process goes into our fat. So if your body can't process something like this, the chemical in there, it's going, what's this shit? Then it just goes boom, straight into your fat. That's where it's stored. Deal with it later. So then what's the thing that we all eat in meat? It's fat. And then what have we been like, I mean, the animal fats are supposedly be bad, but we know they're good, but still people are looking at animal, people go, okay, well, I'm just going to eat the fat. The fat's really good for me, but you're ingesting all those chemicals and the things. There's only traces of them, but you do that over a lifetime. Well, what effect is that having on you when you're 60?
And I think that's something that people struggle with as well, is that it's like this week I'm going to buy free range stuff, but I'm not going to feel better immediately. It's not as if I'm going to go from eating Coles steaks to free range steaks and just have the immediate health benefit instantly. Like if you felt better that quickly, you'll do it all the time. It's more so it's like, right, what are the choices that you're going to make for the rest of your life that's going to have a positive impact on your health? And also, look, for me, it's not only the health, but like who you're impacting further down the line as well there.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
I think there's two real parts to this story on when you're buying free range versus the big conglomerates.
And I think free range can be mass produced too. My thing is connecting that person to their food source, so you know where your meat comes from. Now, it's much harder for us now than it is when it's not a drought.
Yeah. But I think, sorry to cut you off, but I think it's more important for the consumers to know that, because like now's the time to be supporting. You know what I mean? Like now when it's tougher is the time to be turning to it and not away from it. So like if the free range butcher hasn't got as much in stock as easily available, like now's the time to support that kind of economy, opposed to like turn away and go buy the meat that that's going to be sitting on the shelf from October.
Yeah, that's look. Anytime's a good time to come to the food. But you can. I think that the important thing is that even though like you might come to us now and you go like, where's this steak from? Well, I can tell you where the steak comes from. So I'll go, look, mate, it's coming out of this farm, or it comes from Thomas Foods. I buy it. It comes out of a box, and this is what it is.
Yeah.
And the food industry for years and years and years has been pushing the consumer away from it, so that manipulation and the factory farming and all that sort of stuff doesn't get seen. And if the people and then naturally we don't want to see it. So like there is nothing, and this might gross some people out, but there is nothing better that I find than looking after an animal, slaughtering it humanely, looking after the meat after that fact, and then using all of that product in whatever way I can, whether it's making bone broth out of the bones or eating the meat or whatever it is, or even feeding those bones to my dog, or returning the bones back to the earth so that they can then break down and go back to where it came from, because that's where we all come from, the earth. That's where we all started. There's nothing more precious, I think, than that. Now, if I talk to 100 people, I don't think there'd be anyone else that'd say that to me. They'd say, that's gross. I don't want to know about it. You're a freak. Don't want to talk about it. Yeah. But then you're willing to consume that. So
or wear it.
Yeah.
As in the leathers.
Yeah.
Like
that's what I mean. Like, and people don't. And I use this analogy a lot about a car. Like people go and, you go buy a second-hand car, you go buy a new car, but a second-hand car, you walk around it, you kick the tyres, you lift it up, you're bargaining with the guy, you're pushing him down on price, you want to know its service history, what it's done, why is that ding there, scratch, blah, 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 blah. And then they pay the money for the car, they drive home, they walk in, fill it from, Coles or Woolies or any other supermarket, wherever it is, fill the car up with fruit and vegetables and food. No one ever asks a question about them.
Yeah.
And then they drive home, put it in their fridge and consume it.
Yeah.
So people are more concerned about certain objects and they do the food that they consume.
Yeah.
And because it's we die very slowly. As humans and animals do. Like when we're sick, we die very slowly. So you can live longer, you can live better, you can live healthier. And those guys that you see that are 70 and 80, or old blokes on the farm that, mate, they don't eat any processed foods or anything like that. And we'll talk about that before we go, because there's a thing there on preservatives that I just want to say as well. But like any of those, those old guys, they're just living clean, they're living hard, and there's always exceptions to the rule. So the old guy that drinks 4 litres of sherry a day and 50 cigarettes, and he's still going.
He's still going at 100. But you're talking that.
I'll take the clean route.
Yeah.
And I'll play that game, because I reckon at the back end I'm going to be better off for it.
Yeah.
And even diets. You look to see how diets affect multiple sclerosis and things like that. Now, like our gut has a lot more to do with our health and what we understand, and we haven't even worked out those links yet, you know. And preservatives have a big part on that.
I was going to say, let's wrap it up with that. Do you want to talk
because
about that?
we do, like, all of our, well, not all of our stuff is preservative free. Some of the stuff you cannot do, but there's levels of a preservative you can put in. We make preservative free sausage. We do a lot of fail safe stuff for people as well, like just, you know, 1 ounce when their kids are sick, or you want to, you know. So if anyone out there wants to be strict preservative free, then we can make whatever you want. You give us a recipe, we'll do it. But preservatives are used to kill bacteria in food. They're not discriminatory, so they kill good and bad bacteria. So when we consume processed foods, the reason it's processed, they've got to put preservatives in it to keep it, and they kill all your gut biome. So then, the more processed food we eat, the worse. The worse it is. You know. So for us, and we're more and more. You got to, and you know, people think that, you know, my chicken's expensive for $22. People come in and say, you know, how much is your raw fillet? And I go, it's $79 a kilo. They go, what? Oh yeah, but that's been aging, you know, blah 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 blah. Well, you go buy a McDonald's burger now, and we don't do McDonald's that much. But one thing we got is when we go with the kids once or twice a year, we're going to the farm. We stop and get Macca's with the kids twice a year. And I stopped in and I go, quarter pounder, but I knew I'm going to regret it. Like it's nice going down and I like it. But there's 10 minutes later, I'm going, that was shit. I'm still hungry. Yeah. But now the things cost $16 or $18 for the meal. Yeah, and yeah. I got to do something. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to weigh up a burger and the cost of it. Like literally weigh it and go, a burger's like, it costs you, I reckon that'd be $20 or $30 a kilo. Got to be. Yeah.
Wait, so you're taking like the beef patty out of it, you weigh that?
I mean, you just weigh the burger like the food, and you just go like that burger.
And then you do that per kilo, and what that's costing.
You work out the per kilo rate of the burger.
Yeah.
And that burger's a bloody expensive burger.
Well, mate, the same thing goes for petrol. You know what I mean? The price that we're paying for petrol now, you look at a can of Coke, and it's 300 mils, and you pay $5 for it. Yeah. But everyone whinges about the price of petrol. Yeah. It's like and it's only sugar and water really in Coke. It's insane.
That's a dream business, that job. That margin, man. Understanding business like I do now, that's the margin that's just not in me.
Well, mate, like this has been super insightful for me, and like I really hope the guys get a lot out of it as well, which I can't see why they wouldn't. But how do we support you? I know that you're at the Mona Vale market still. Is that right? Are you at the?
Yeah. So we do about 7 or 8 farmers markets through Sydney and Newcastle each weekend. Okay. We're Narrabeen on a Friday. You come and catch us at the Mona Vale market, and if you're, depending when this goes out, that market is moving from the RSL just during January. It's going to not Kitchener Park, but the park down here at Mona Vale.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Apex? Not Apex. That's on Mona Vale Beach. The one right in the middle of Mona.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. I don't know what that's called. Right near the park house.
Yes.
Is that park?
Opposite. Yeah.
I don't know
so in between
called.
there and Pittwater Road, Barrenjoey Road.
Yeah, okay.
Intersection there. So we're moving there for a month, and then we go back to the RSL at the end of January.
Okay.
After the long weekend. So we're there. You can order freerangebutcher.com.au, get home delivery. But one thing I really wanted to kick off with you guys is doing a pack and down here and dropping it off so that your guys can just get, like, you know, the freshest meat that we can provide, and get an avenue in that. So we've put together a protein pack, and it's very hard because people have different level of protein needs or what they think that they need. Yeah. The science is out that you can't digest any more than 50 grams of protein per. I think it's roughly about 50 grams of protein per serve. Okay. We talked about the expensive. You know, we speak about that with the supplements. We got some people with the most expensive urine in the world. They can't process it, and they just end up getting rid of it all. Yeah. So if you can, I think the one thing, and we've all got to do, and I eat less meat, and it's not great for business to be telling people to eat less meat, but realistically for our health now, you need to be eating lesser quantity of a greater quality product. And what we do is try and provide the most nutrient-dense product we can. There's not a lot of good quality organic stuff at the moment just because of the drought. A lot of the organic stuff is coming from out in the desert country. The nutritional profile of the grass there isn't great. And the meat, what we can get available now doesn't seem to be any good. The farms that we deal directly with, where we get bodies of beef, like the fresh stuff, like that's on hold until it rains. So we're just really sticking to a predominantly grass-fed product for the moment. Okay. And anyway, the pack that we put together is a protein pack, so it's portion controlled into roughly sort of 200 gram pieces. Okay. It's 14 portions, and there's a mixture of grass-fed steak, some grass-fed lamb there, some really nice free range chicken. We get a local guy to make some marinades for us. Marinades are just herbs, oils, no preservatives, just good, clean stuff.
Okay.
Because a lot of the stuff you can buy is just got
full of sugar and
it's just ridiculous.
It's unbelievable.
So good clean protein in that, and the great marinades. So there's a bit chicken tenderloins. It's not the shit cuts. It's like the good cuts. Your tenderloin, it's your New Yorks, your strips. And we've got some wild caught fish. So we've teamed up with the guys from Pitwater Seafood. So we're getting some wild caught fish from those guys, and that varies. It's a white fish, so we'll just change that up, whatever's freshest and good. But portion that to 200 grams. So the idea anyway is that it's costing under $7 a feed, so a portion, which, it still sounds expensive for a lot of people, but really when you weigh it up, and if you're minimising your protein, you're not minimising, but if you're eating realistic amounts of protein, it's really quite economical.
Well, look, and I don't think that if you've listened to the last hour of what we've just spoke about, it makes perfect sense to do that. So we'll put out with this post a bunch of information for our guys. But just to reiterate what you're saying is, like, we're going to create these packs. Obviously, you're directly behind our fence, nice and close by, so you get the freshest stuff. Drop it off at the gym, and the guys can collect their stuff from the gym. Yeah,
so we use a fully recyclable box. So it's made out of a wool cool product, so it's a wool lining insulated, so it can be go in your garden as compost. It's a really awesome material. Cardboard box can be recycled, so it's fully recyclable. Gel pack in it to keep it cold. So what I think you guys got a 5 a.m. class on a
5:30, yep,
5:30 in the morning. So the thought is that we'll drop that probably through on a Friday morning,
yep,
and then people can come in and pick it up. So if it's a Thursday afternoon or something like that, then we can do that as well.
Awesome.
But we're trying to work that out so we can just do drops in, and we'll just we're early risers, so we'll have them here when people turn up for class.
And just quickly, if people want to get in touch with you directly, what's the website?
Yeah, freerangebutcher.com.au. If you want to send me an email, simply ben@freerangebutcher.com.au. And I'm always happy to ask people. I'm always at the market, so I'm always happy to, you can come up and front me or send me an email, with your phone number, and I'll give you a buzz back. Or my passion is really trying to narrow that gap and have conversations like these. So the people understand just a little bit more, and they understand why it's $6.90 a portion, and understand you don't need. I mean, there were plenty of days where I'd wake up and have a 500 gram T-bone for breakfast, like plenty of days of that. But I tell you what, I've dropped a heap of weight, and I feel a heap better not consuming that volume of product. And look, I eat many more greens than what I do protein now.
It's refreshing to hear someone from your industry. Do you know what I mean? Like it's nice to hear the honesty of that. It's like it's not great for business to tell people to eat less meat, but you want to really shit for business. But you really do want to concentrate on the quality. Like it's not about that quantity. Yeah.
And this is for us now as a business too. We've got to hit different angles. Like people think now I talk about, I say, I'm working with a couple of guys in different gyms and trying to get this stuff going. They go, why are you selling meat in a gym?
Yeah.
I go, well, that's what, we've got to change the way we do business.
Yeah.
Because we've got to sell a lot more. We've got to sell a lot less meat to a lot more people, to make the job viable. Because it is much too. I could run 2 butchers, and have machines, and do that. I could, instead of paying the money we do for the guys to make the marinades, I could buy the cheap shit that's full of sugar.
Yeah.
I could buy cheap meat. But that's not something that sits well with me. It's not the sort of business I want, so that's why we don't do it.
Well, mate, hopefully we've educated at least our guys in here, and they're going to start to make better choices as well. I know for a fact I will be.
Yeah. And look, like I said, I'm always happy to answer anyone questions. And mate, I'd love to come down and train them. Only just I'm doing a bit with the guys at with Ryan.
With Ryan, yeah. Everyone here knows Ryan. Yeah.
Mate, that guy's he's awesome. I got some muscles that I've found that I didn't know I had.
All right, mate. Well, thanks heaps for your time. And like you said, reach out. Anyone that wants to ask Ben any questions, and Free Range Butcher in Mona Vale, give him a wave when you run past as well.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, thanks mate.
For the opportunity, Sean.
My pleasure, mate. Cheers.